Welcome to today's studio management class where we'll be exploring the studio layout. Let's start with the control panel. Here we have the heart of the studio operations. We have the audio mixing console, which is crucial for mixing multiple audio sources, adjusting levels and adding effects. Next, we have the monitors, which are useful in providing essential views for camera operators, directors and producers to keep tracks of all actions. On the other hand, headphones allow sound engineers, directors, and other crew members to monitor the audio feeds accurately without interference from the studio environment. Now, let's move to the studio floor plan where the magic happens. High-resolution professional broadcasting cameras capture the action, mounted on tripods or pedestals for stability. Studio lighting is key. Therefore, with soft light, fill light, and backlight, we ensure there is a perfect illumination. Microphones include lapel, shotgun, and boom mics. They capture clear audios from our talents and guests. Together, the studio panel and the studio floor forms a seamless operation, delivering high-quality television content to your screen.
Camera 1.
Thank you for joining us on our today's tour of our studio layout. Stay tuned for more video insights.
Maandamano pia yaendelea siku ya leo katika mji wa Mombasa. Natasha Briana haripoti zaidi. Kando na hiyo pia maandamano yaliyoshuhudiwa jana katika mji wa Nairobi yasababisha maafa. Broadcast. Our top story today touches on recent political changes within the Kenya opposition. The Azimio coalition, once strong challenging the government, is now facing major difficulties. This comes after President William Ruto offers cabinet positions to the members of the Azimio coalition. Wainaina Kamukwa reports.
The once formidable Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance, led by Raila Odinga and supported by key figures like Kalonzo Musyoka and Martha Karua, is now facing significant disintegration. This alliance, which once stood as a powerful opposition force, is facing significant shift as key leaders make exceptional moves. The first major crack in the alliance appeared when Raila Odinga, long seen as the face of opposition, surprised many by joining forces with President William Ruto. This unexpected move came on the heels of the Genzi demonstrations that rocked the nation, with several members of the Azimio Brigade who have been vocal critics of Ruto administration having now accepted position within the cabinet. The shift has deepened division within the coalition and also raised questions about the future of the alliance.
I, Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, being appointed a Cabinet Secretary of Kenya.
I, Hassan Ali Joho, being appointed the Cabinet Secretary of Kenya.
It is now clear that the political landscape in Kenya is undoubtedly changing, and with it, the dynamics of power and opposition. As the situation continues to evolve, our eyes now are focused on the new cabinet. For YKTV production, my name is Anthony Wainaina.
And now moving on to our next segment, we have the pleasure of discussing the recent maandamano with our guest. First thing first, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for the invite. My name is Latasha Brianna. I am a communication student at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and I'm also a digital activist. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure having you, Latasha. Moving to the questions, can you briefly explain what was happening in the maandamano and what were you protesting about?
The main reason behind the protests initially was the oppressive finance bill that was proposed by the government, and that pushed people to air their views because the finance bill was not fair to the common mwananchi. Yes.
And how significant has been the role of Genzi in the maandamano?
So the Genzi protests have been unique and very significant because one, they were marked by, the protests they were not led by any leader, and they were not lying on any tribal lines. They were very objective, and the number one objective was to reject the finance bill that was very oppressive. So I believe that Genzis have been able to demonstrate that the power belongs to the people, as it's stated in the constitution. And number two, that peaceful protests can be done. And number three, we don't have to have tribal associations for unity to be there. As long as it's bad governance, it's going to affect all of us. It's not going to affect just the Kikuyus or the Luos or, but bad governance affects everybody. So yes, I think the Genzis have been able to clearly bring this out.
And Latasha, our social media platforms, specifically TikTok and Instagram, used to spread awareness about the maandamano?
Well, digital activism has played a significant role during this time because we've seen the protests were planned and mobilized through social media, where we had posters that were going around that contained details on where people were meeting, what to carry, what not to carry, and all that. And also we saw civic education being done through the different social media platforms like Instagram, where we had people, especially people who understood the finance bill better. They were able to translate it to even vernacular languages and to even simplify it for the common mwananchi to understand just how the finance bill was going to negatively impact them. We also had hashtags that were being used, like Reject the Finance Bill 2024, that gained a lot of attraction worldwide. And yes, so many people were able to know what is happening in Kenya, and we were also able to get the attention of international agencies. And then something else on the social media, we were able to gain a lot of resources or to mobilize resources. That is, we had hotlines in case people were stranded or they were injured. We had medics that had offered contact information where you can get assisted. And then we also had lawyers that offered their services, and they gave legal representation to the people who are arrested illegally while protesting. So, and also we had people who donated because there are people who are affected or injured during the protests. Yes, so through social media we were able to mobilize resources to do civic education and also to just get the word out there globally that there is something happening in Kenya. Yes.
That's impressive.
Mm.
And what challenges do you Gen Z face when arranging and participating in the maandamano?
Now, initially, when the protests began, the protests were very peaceful. But then I think the biggest challenge over time has been the infiltration by goons, where goons have been hired to destroy or to distract the protests so that the Gen Zs will be deemed as violent, and that was not the case initially. So the protests now have not been objective because of the goons, and I think that's a major problem because it's very discouraging for the protesters to go out there because it's not even safe for them anymore. And then another challenge is police brutality. We know that the constitution provides for peaceful demonstrations, but that has not been the case here in Kenya. We have seen police using force towards peaceful protesters, and even live bullets that has led to the loss of lives. And that should not be the case where citizens are just marching to voice their issues, So I think, and there has not been accountability over the lives that have been lost. We have seen our leaders going on air and talking about the properties that have been lost. Yes, that is bad, that business people lost their property and all, but the government has failed to acknowledge the lives that have been lost, the people that are injured in the hospitals, all because of voicing their concerns. So we need accountability, and we need the government to acknowledge police brutality and justice to also happen. So I would say police brutality and infiltration by the goons in the protests.
And Latasha, why do you say they were the goons that destroyed the properties and made the protests violent and not the Gen Zs?
Well, it's very evident when you consider the very first protest organized by the Gen Zs. There was no any sign of violence. In fact, it was just people marching with the Kenyan flag and with their phones, because we are a generation that has been raised in tech, so we are very techy in nature. So most people were just marching with their phones to create awareness about what is happening and with the Kenyan flag. If the Gen Zs were honestly violent from the beginning, we should have seen businesses being destroyed and violence taking place, but that is not in their nature. And from the beginning we didn't see that. Why is it that now when the protests were ongoing is when we started seeing businesses being looted and people getting all violent? We didn't see it from the beginning. So this is not consistent with the general character that the Gen Zs portrayed from the beginning. We've just been seeing the violence actually recently, but the first protests, they were not marked by any violence. So we are made to believe that the government, or I don't know, the leaders paid goons to come and destroy the businesses of people. Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. And what lessons have been learned from the Gen Z involvement in maandamano for the future mobilization?
Well, number one is that we have moved from the era of tribalism, and now we have come to the realization that bad governance affects all of us. And number two, your voice does matter. So the public should be very at the front to fight for good governance and to air their views in case of anything. In case the government does not give accountability or just bad systems of leadership, your voice does matter concerning these issues, and ignorance will affect all of us. And then number three, digital activism does work. The use of social media platforms like TikTok, X Space and all that, it does work. So let no one lie to you that we're just a TikTok generation, but we can actually use TikTok and Instagram to bring about civic education and positive change in our country.
And finally, Latasha, what advice would you give to your fellow Gen Z peers who are wanting to get involved in the maandamano or the digital activism?
Well, my advice would be to, number one, be peaceful while you're protesting and airing your views. don't use violence. And then number 2, use what you have to get your voice out there. And for us, that looks like social media, because we are in the social media era or generation. So use social media, don't undermine digital activism, and just make sure that your voice is heard. Yes, your voice matters.
Thank you for tuning in YK TV Production News Bulletin. I have been your host, Moti Sondu.